balance sheet itself is simply a listing of what they've accumulated: real estate, brokerage accounts, retirement accounts, whatever it is that they've got. And typically, on a marital balance sheet, we're identifying property, because property can take several different forms in a divorce. You have separate property, that is, again, what you brought into the marriage or that you received during the marriage through gifts or inheritance from a third party. In most states, those are not going to get divided in a divorce. Now, I could digress and start talking about how sometimes it becomes relevant on a child support or alimony calculation, but that's not really going to help us today. Now, the marital assets, that's what you've acquired during the marriage. Usually, as I like to say to people, through the sweat of your brow. That's where we get into, Tish talked earlier about fraudulent conveyance. And the spouse that's out of the trust is going to try to go about establishing that this was a fraudulent conveyance. It was set up to beat the marital estate out of property. And then it's left to a judge to decide whether or not that's true. And that's where the judge goes into the badges of fraud that Tish talked about. But it's a serious piece of litigation when you have to get into all that. And almost without exception, when you have moneyed grandparents or parents who are planning on leaving something to their child, there's going to be a prenup. And they're not getting married without, because they know the law, and they know all about this marital and separate property, but they're going to lock it down even tighter with a prenup. And I think you can protect assets that you've acquired during the marriage. I mean, that's a whole cottage industry of trust and estates lawyers that do nothing but set up these trusts and LLCs to help people basically pay as little tax as possible. And it's all perfectly legal and above board.